friends, C-Note here, and we're here with another tutorial. I want to talk about lighting when it comes to your remote meeting setup, your iMeetings, your e-meetings, your Zoom meetings, your whatever you want to call them. Everybody's doing it these days, mostly because we have to, but largely because that's the way the world's been moving to for a long time. And for a lot of us, we're using different setups and different situations, and we all have different lighting in our houses and all sorts of different scenarios that we need to account for and consider. So in this video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the principles to consider, maybe not necessarily a how-to step-by-step sort of thing, but what to consider in different scenarios for what you need. The birds are chirping, everything's buzzing outside. It's fantastic. So we're going to do the best we can to make this a fun, ridiculous video. So basically, we've got these big windows here on my situation, and on the right side over here, I've got a lot of darkness. And just the main principle I would think to consider when you're considering lighting is that if you have some sort of natural light to work with, if you can perch up in front of a window, whether it is you're dealing with a DSLR like I have, or a webcam like I have in the other video here that we're going to jump to shortly. Lighting, getting some sort of natural light would be the ideal situation, whether that's sitting in front of the window or getting it kind of a little bit off your face a little bit. It doesn't have to be so direct, but something that's sort of spilling off your face would be fantastic. So you can see in my situation, it's lit enough and there's a little bit of drama on the right side. Ooh. So enjoy yourself with that. So you can play with lighting setups and make sure that you're visibly clear. You don't need your background to be as visibly clear. I know there's a lot of videos where people have like a plain white backdrop and it sort of matches some complexions sometimes, and it just kind of washes you out. And that's not necessarily the best scenario. And the other way around, if you're in a really dark room and all you can see is your shadows of your eyeballs, it's a little too dark, it's a little too much. So contrast is one of the biggest things to consider as well. You can see behind me, my space is kind of darker, so I'm going to take advantage of that. And I have a green light going on. You can't really see it in the video, but if I were to take that and sort of put it behind me or something like that, you can create some visual interest in the background. So it depends on your space. If you've got stuff visually behind you, you can kind of keep it back there, keep it interesting. We've got this little message board behind me. I forget what it says. It says quarantine party, because we did put that up for quarantine party. So, just if you have one of those boards in the background, you can put little messages for little Easter eggs for your coworkers or friends or streamer fans to check out. So the DSLR setup is what I usually use for my meetings and such, or for connections, for games, for whatever I'm doing. And I suspect that if you have a DSLR, you probably don't need to know much about this sort of setup. But if you want to know anything about a DSLR setup, how to get that set up, if you use a PC or a Mac or anything like that, let me know. I could do a separate video on that in the comments below. So we're going to move over to the webcam setup, which is basically on most laptops. I've got a 2012 MacBook. We're going to warp over there. I'm not going to warp, I'm going to walk, but and we're going to talk about that situation because it's a different consideration than this one.
We are now on the laptop setup. This is pretty much the common scenario that we're going to see amongst users who are doing like casual Zoom meetings. I'm on a MacBook Pro. This is a 2012, so it's older. The camera is basically a potato, and a potato with a B, by the way. That's how you say potato. And the thing you need to consider is, again, that your face is well lit. And if you use natural lighting, that's going to be the best scenario, right? So I'm going to actually take you over to the window. I'm in the middle of the room, so I've got the darkness. I'm basically like more in the darkness than I am in the light at the moment. And I've got my green light sort of on my face. This is not a setup scenario. This is, right now, we're going to figure out this setup as we go along so I can show you the considerations. So if I'm able to take you with me real quick, I'm going to go over, and you can see how the light changed pretty much immediately the second I put myself in front of the window. The contrast behind me allows the focus on my face, and I could totally just, like, if I had a way to prop this up here, put it on a windowsill or something like that, and just get like a stool, that would totally be, perfectly fine. because it's not over saturating my face, and I'm not right in front of the window. If I go closer to the window and have the light on my face, you can see like the shadow, the lighting on my cheeks are starting to blow out a little bit. And that's because these webcams are not really built for, to manage that high contrast. So if you can sort of get sort of a medium scenario where you're like close to a window, but you know, bright enough, but not super bright, that's the ideal situation. But I know not everyone has that situation. So what to consider here is that you're going to be kind of in a, if you're in a dark space, you're in a dark apartment, which is a lot of people, then there is a couple things to consider, a couple things that you can do. The other thing is to basically, the next big topic really, is to fill your space with light. That's kind of a different scenario. So you could attempt, if you have one of these lights here, I'll grab this light and show you. Molly, my partner, picked this up, which is fantastic. I'm always stealing it from her. I have to get my own. So if you purchase this in the link below and contribute to the channel, then I can buy my own and not have to keep stealing it from Molly. So this is a really great ring light. It also has a phone holder. So if you're using your phone for Zoom meetings, like that's great for that too. And this is a really good light for if you just need like a little spotlight on yourself. However, this is another scenario where you may not necessarily want the light directly, intensely on your face. Because again, like I said, everything's going to get blown out, right? You can see that I'm practically a ghost. And if I wanted to tell scary stories, this is what I would do. And actually you put the light sort of down up, and then you start talking about campfire stories and, you know, living your best life that way. Oh man, my facial hair does not look flattering in that light. So we're not going to do that. So what's nice about this light is, and this is not like a review of this light, this is just helpful, is that this light has like varying levels of luminosity. And if you can get it to like its lowest setting, it can probably help you even out some light. Like that's pretty good right there. However, I've got glasses, so you can see the reflection in my eyes. So you can see there's like all sorts of problems to consider. So what else I'm going to try here is I'm going to move the light, face it up, and see if we can fill the room with a little more light, because this is a pretty bright light, and see if that can help us out to see if we can bounce some light off of the ceiling. So that's a little helpful, but it's still pretty blown out. So what we might end up doing is that, if I was on this call right now, what I would do in my scenario is put the light in its lowest setting and then just have it sort of slightly up and off camera, so it's not in my eyes, but it's lighting my face enough. I'll turn it on and off so you can see the difference. This is off. I just went pitch black. On. Nice, my face is lit. There's enough contrast between me and the background so you can get a sense of depth, and you can actually see my face, which I think is part of the point of being on a remote call. Otherwise, we're all just wasting our time. So another thing to consider, I'm going to turn off this light real quick. I've got a room lamp, one that's facing the ceiling to kind of help fill some light in a little bit. And I've got a sort of pointed light that I can put also facing upward to help kind of fill the light a little bit. So again, that's going to be kind of blown out. Again, some of these lights are like super bright, right? So that helps a little bit, but again, I think this ring light is going to be your best bet. So that kind of fills me in, and then if I turn off this room light, you know, that basically solves the problem. So I think that's the best case scenario. Best case scenario is natural light. Second would be the ring light. And then third is if you have enough light, like a softbox or some sort of fill light to fill the room or bounce the light from in front of you. The problem with the light that I was just trying to turn on is that the light is behind me. So actually, let's try this real quick. Let's use this ring light as the example here. So if I've got the ring light on its lowest setting right now, if I turn it all the way up, As you can see already, I am basically blind, but if we turn this around, let's sort of try to bounce it off of either the ceiling or the wall in front of us, we could get a little bit out of that as well. So turn it off, turn it on. It's not a massive difference for that, but that's something you can try as well, depending on your scenario. So again, in my scenario, what I'm gonna do is turn it all the way down, do it at kind of like a 45-degree angle above the webcam. And as you can see, again, I'll turn it off, turn it on, and that's basically how that would work. So I think this is perfectly lit, this is fine. I think the only other consideration is that if you have some books or some way to prop up the laptop, so the laptop, because my B's are P's today, my P's are B's, whatever, and you put it, you know, kind of lean it up on a higher table or a countertop. You sort of want a scenario where people aren't looking up at you and looking up at your chin and your rolls, because that's not the situation I want. So I will sort of perch it up on a couple books or something like that. And basically you want your eye line to be at the camera essentially, so that you're also not stretching your neck when you're looking down. You're kind of like stretching the back of your neck a little bit. It's not an ideal scenario. You don't want to do that for too long. So that's why we have neck problems from looking at our phones and our screens and stuff like that. So the best that you can do to manage that would be really good as well.
Let me know what other questions you have about this sort of Zoom setup. What you have questions about lighting. Maybe you have a particular scenario, you can't quite figure it out. Another tip that I hadn't added here is that if you have different lights in your room, in your house, to try to get it to be the similar light, meaning tungsten versus like a white light versus more of a yellowish light, basically, would be better. And if you can keep the same color of lighting throughout, for at least the fill light on your face, that would be the most easiest, because language is great. And being able to maybe add a little bit of a color light in the background, if you've got that sort of thing, would certainly add some depth to the scenario as well. Don't overthink it, don't overdo it. Again, the simplest thing you can do is take advantage of natural light if you've got it. Second would be to pick up that ring light, which is in the description below. And then third would be to try to fill the room with as much light as possible so that everything is even. And really the only thing you want to avoid is to not blow out your face, and basically to not have to get into a scenario where you're just like super in the dark and you're dealing with one of these like
are you afraid of the dark scenarios where you're telling stories by the campfire, unless that's what your intention is to do. So with all of that said, thanks for watching. I hope you guys take care of yourselves and each other. Be safe out there. If you have questions, in the comments below about your situation, I also do consulting. So if you need some additional assistance with your situation, just let me know. If you have questions and comments for other videos, other setups, techie things, photography, video, graphic design, audio stuff, etc. You let me know and we'll do the best we can. So with that said, see you guys later. Bye.